Great. So today I'm chatting with Sophie Holmes, who is a really interesting person I came across earlier this year. She's a triathlete and a personal trainer and a really interesting person, but she also was born with cystic fibrosis, which is really interesting. So to get us started, do you want to just give us a bit of a brief overview about what that is and what that's meant for you, particularly nutrition and food-wise?
Yeah, of course. So cystic fibrosis is an inherited genetic disease that you are born with. Like you can't have it later on in life. You can't catch it. Basically, your parents have to obviously carry the faulty gene.
Mhm.
And basically what it means is your body basically builds up an excess of mucus, which causes infection within your lungs, which obviously the reason behind people obviously saying it's like a life-threatening, life-shortening degenerative disease is because obviously over time, if you keep having infections, your lung capacity reduces, scarring, etc. And then obviously it comes to a point where you may need a lung transplant. But alongside that, due to the buildup of mucus, your digestive system doesn't work either,
Mm.
or isn't as efficient because obviously your body doesn't have the ability to produce the enzymes needed, or they can't release the enzymes. And therefore that means is you actually have to eat 3,000 to 4,000 calories being female per day
Yeah.
to maintain any kind of weight. And of course, like most people with CF are underweight,
Yeah.
or they carry an excess of fat on their bellies due to basically poor advice from
Okay.
the dietitians in the hospital, basically trying to get people to eat. So basically what I grew up on was my parents got told, you must eat as much as you possibly can,
Mm.
eat loads of like high sugar, high fat, which obviously fat is good for you, but basically I was fed on junk food.
Which is, yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, it's not an area that I've personally worked in, but there's bits I've sort of come across and heard, and yeah, the points that have come to mind is people being told that, like you say, about lots of sugar, lots of fat, put cream on everything.
Yeah.
Um,
And obviously, as you know, being that it's obviously your job, that obviously is not good for inflammation in your body and all kinds of things. And so obviously my parents didn't know any better, but I remember growing up in the world of pain, bloated stomach. And I remember thinking, like, not obviously understanding it, because I was like, why am I feeling like this, etc. And obviously through sport and everything, I've kind of learned, you need to fuel your body well.
yeah.
Obviously enjoy what you want as well, but obviously when I have to take, I don't know, 50 Korean on a day just to digest my food,
Yeah.
um, you want to
It's
try and be.
battling with tablets.
Oh, I know. I'm basically a walking pharmacy. Um, but it's like a crazy way to grow up. Because I remember, obviously, given the education that I know now about my body, if I knew that back then when I was competing, when I was like in a teenage kind of like track athlete and stuff, I'd be like, oh my God, like it would be the difference.
Yeah. So
Just because obviously,
you've always done quite a lot of sport, is it?
yeah. So I basically run or moved as soon as I could walk. So I was competitive on the track, 400 meters, 200 meters. And then I had a horse, so I competed him in eventing. And then I got really sick at 19 and basically got told that I'd have a couple of years to live. So I retrained and re-educated myself in nutrition and coaching, personal training, fitness. And that's when I kind of turned into the endurance side of things, obviously ultramarathons, triathletes, etc.
Yeah. Yeah, because you've climbed like Mount Kilimanjaro, haven't you?
Yeah, so basically like Kilimanjaro for me is like the moment my life changed forever,
Oh,
because
really?
I sat in hospital and I was like, right, well, what am I going to do about this? Like, for me, it's about the quality of your life rather than like like how long you're here for. Obviously, we all want to be here for a long time, but I was like, do you know what? Let's fill these years with memories and stories and things, so that if I ever found myself in a situation where I couldn't do these things, at least I could look back and be like, but wow, look what I have done.
Yeah.
And so I went to the doctor and I was like, right, I'm going to go and climb Kilimanjaro. Can you please sign the medical form? And they were like, absolutely not. And I was like, yeah, but come on, like if you're telling me that I've only got 2 or 3 years, like I'd rather risk trying to do something than sitting doing nothing.
Yeah.
Luckily, I found a doctor to sign it off, and I did only have 50% lung function at the time. And I did climb it, and I did summit it, and I did some burpees at the top, because obviously, where else are you going to do burpees at 6,000 meters? Celebration. And for me, obviously, I sat on the edge of that mountain, and I was like, if I can do this now, like what more could I do if I can get my body healthy?
Yeah.
So it kind of spiraled out of control in an amazing way.
Yeah.
And obviously climbed other mountains. I've done obviously ultra marathons. I did an ultra paddleboard race, which is a very random race.
That is random.
From the Bahamas to Florida. It was incredible.
How far is that?
80 miles. So
80
we did it
or 80?
80.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, so we did it basically through the night. Luckily the sharks in the Bahamas are friendly, because we did see them. And one guy did kind of have his hand nibbled a bit, but he's fine. But you know what, like having CF and growing up with all of this has given me like such a unique outlook and like new unique drive. And I'm so sure that without it, I wouldn't be that person, or like definitely wouldn't be grateful to be able to do all these things and kind of be pushed to do these things. And actually, I think sometimes it's adversity that kind of forces people's hands to kind of like do the stuff they actually want to do and have the courage to live life on their terms.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's really interesting. And so, because you're on a new medication now, and I think you're saying before that it feels like it's just completely changed your life.
Yeah. So basically, Kaftrio came into my life 4 months ago, and it basically started working in 3 hours. It's mental. And I remember taking it, and I was like, so now what do I do? Do I just wait? Because it's like you just don't know how your body's going to react. Because I'd heard so many stories of people having these big purges and not being able to leave the house for various stomach related issues, and obviously coughing and stuff. And obviously being the year that we're in with COVID, I was like, I can't be outside and be coughing loads because of this medication. Could you imagine? Like, but honestly, like the only way I can kind of liken it to is if I was to send you out for a 5K run with an altitude mask and a corset on, and then come back, take it off and send you out again.
Yeah.
Like the difference.
Yeah. Is you felt that difference within 3 hours.
Yeah.
Is it a tablet, or is it like what?
Yeah, so it's 3 tablets. So 2 in the morning, 1 in the evening, having to be taken with fats, so for it to be absorbed properly. But honestly, it has changed everything for me. Like even to the point where like I've been taking off all my other medications, only on these tablets. I was on 80 before. My digestive enzymes that I take, I only have a couple a day now compared to 50. Yeah. So like for me, that this is like, is this what it's like to live without cystic fibrosis, basically?
That's amazing. And is that medication available for everyone with CF, or is in the UK, or is it sort of limited access at the moment?
Well, so this is the only thing with it, you have to have the right genetics for it. So my CF gene is double delta 508, and you have to have one of those 508s to be on it. Okay. I think they are testing like other people with CF with different genetics, because there's thousands of strands of CF out there. And I think they are finding that more people can have it. So I think 90% of people can, but there's obviously like a small proportion that have a very rare form of CF. But I'm hoping that, you never know, this medication might be able to go to everyone else. Yeah. And then everyone can then have this benefit. Because even if you think about it, like back in September, my lung function was 70%. Yeah. And now it's 110.
Oh, wow.
Obviously for me, yeah. So for me, like even just training for this Ironman, like I was thinking about it the other day and I was like, God, like I definitely would. I've still done it, obviously, because it's me. But the ease of training is phenomenal now.
Because which Ironman are you doing now? Because I know you end up doing the one at home.
I did. I'm still like signed up to do Austria, but I'm hoping to do Marbella half as well. So
that's very, cool. Very exciting. How many hours a week do you train at the moment?
It's 13 hours at the moment.
Yeah, that's cool. So like with sort of like food for training and with CF now, like what does that look like for you?
So I'm still eating actually the same amount as I was before, because obviously with this volume of training, you have to fuel your body, you have to fuel it for recovery. Yeah. And I still do have CF, so I still probably, although obviously I actually put on 7 kilos from this drug, probably due to the volume of training, I still have to kind of like maintain that, because obviously that's where my body is healthiest. Yeah. So like I am very specific about what I do before, what I do after, and making sure, like I wouldn't say that I would track every day, but I do track every so often just to make sure that I am kind of hitting everything that my body needs. Because obviously, as you know, like it's very easy just to eat, but if you're actually taking note about what you're actually doing, I naturally would probably find that I don't eat enough.
Yeah, like in terms of enough energy or enough protein or like everything?
Probably enough carbs, actually.
Okay, yeah.
Which I think a lot of people would probably normally hit that fine, but I think as well, obviously with this volume of training, I want to make sure that my body is supported in every possible way, especially because obviously the running and stuff is high impact. You do loads of that. I'm on the pill, so obviously that can affect your bones and stuff. So, you know, like probably, you know, what I do is, before, I probably wouldn't train. Like I used to be able to train like quite early, but now because I want to make sure that my body's got enough food in it, I normally just get up, have some breakfast, then I'll have like some jam on toast or something with a coffee. Then about half an hour later, do whatever I've got to do, unless it's a run. Obviously I have to wait a bit longer, but you know, it works for me. And then obviously get off the bike, do your refueling, and then continue in your day, because obviously a lot of the Ironman training is twice a day, so you have to then take that into consideration of like what you're eating in the middle. Like it's quite an art, I feel like.
I remember, like, I mean, it's when did I do my Ironman? Like 2016, and I was working full time and training, and before I was often training before work, usually at lunchtime as well, and often in the evenings, and it was just like you're just going from one thing to the next. So that thinking ahead and planning is really key.
Yeah, honestly, like some of my friends are like, "You're mental." I'm like, well, I have got a coach, so it's not like I'm not doing this myself. Which actually is obviously a lot easier to be accountable and make sure you're doing everything you can.
Yeah, and I find also like having a coach, probably my experience is more, it minimizes you doing too much so that you don't burn yourself out. But yeah, like you say, it takes away that stress of, oh, what should I do this week? Have I done enough? Have I done too much? Have I gone too easy? Have I gone too hard? Yep, you're doing fine. Keep going.
No, I just for me, like obviously with this new drug and obviously the way I feel now, I'm just really excited to kind of see what I can do now. My body actually is working with me, not against me.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. And so like what kind of things do you eat during your training? Like do you focus more on carbs or fats or a combination of the two?
A bit of a combination. So it depends obviously how long I'm, say, riding for or running for. But what I try and do is have a lot of things in my water as well. So like carbs in my water, just because obviously it's easily digestible. And I think obviously for me, I'm very self-aware of my body, and I know what I can and can't eat in terms of like how fast it digests through my body, because you don't want to be in a situation. But at the same time, like people probably think that I'm super boring because I just eat like the same thing. Because it works. Like it will either be like some dates or a banana or a flapjack kind of thing, like, you know, every hour or every 45 minutes, depending on the session. I'm trying to get you a bit more used to fueling and running.
Okay. I think that's probably what people often have the most issue is that sort of, and practicing it is the best thing to sort of build up that your gut's tolerance of it, I suppose.
Exactly. And I think it's one of those things, as you know, like you have to, whatever you're fueling on in training is what you fuel on for the race. And this is what I'm kind of like hoping that I can get across as we get hopefully more into racing, because you know there's a lot of people that still message me and who are like, oh, like what do you eat on race day? And I'm like, well, the same as I've been eating for the because I know it works and I know my body well with it, etc. And I just think it's important, especially now I'm on this new drug. I've had to kind of relearn my body because it now acts differently to what it did before.
Well, I think a way I've described it is like racing nutrition and training nutrition. They're two sort of separate things, but they interlink. And so what you eat in training might be, you're not going to eat your race food every single day, but then there's times that you do want to practice it, because I see so many people getting on race day and they're like, oh, I've never had this gel before. And then like halfway through the marathon, they're like, oh, where's the Portaloo?
Oh, I know. It's like the worst thing, isn't it? Like, because I remember like when I did my first ever half marathon, which was probably about 6 or 7 years ago now. I remember like, obviously back then I wasn't as educated. I didn't really think, I just thought, you know, you can rock up and do these things, which you can. But I'd never trained on Lucozade. And I do now. So if I did that now, it would be fine. But at the time, there was no water. It was like weird. There was only Lucozade. So then I was like, well, I've got no choice. And I remember running with it being like, oh, I feel a bit sick, but I don't know whether obviously it's so sweet and stuff like that. And so like, this is why it's so important to like learn your body, especially if you do have a disease that you're dealing with at the same time, because obviously at the same time, you don't know how you're actually going to feel. Like anything else, you could do everything right up to race day, but it doesn't mean you're still going to feel great on race day.
That's it. Like there's only so many things you can't control everything, but if you've controlled everything that you're able to, then you're in the best position to do as best as you're physically possible you're able to do.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like, I'm a firm believer of controlling the controllables, and then everything else, you just have to kind of go with the flow and deal with it as you go. But it is really exciting time for people with CF, because I'm just hoping that there's more people out there who are able then to pick up sport or like do something they've always wanted to do simply because they can breathe. Like I had somebody message me, be like, oh, I never used to be able to really leave the house, and now I'm walking up hills and stairs, and
That's really good.
it's just amazing to see so many people transform their lives. And actually, hopefully in the long run, CF won't be seen as life-threatening anymore.
Yeah, definitely, because that's challenging, because I think sometimes people will, if someone's told that this is going to limit your life, then people will believe that and not.
Yeah. The power of the mind is like incredible, because even when I was growing up, I got told that I wouldn't live past 16 years old. I got to 16 and got told that I wouldn't, make it to like 25. Obviously got sick at 19, got told, that's it for you. And I never believed it. So I've never in my life thought that CF would be the finisher of me. I never thought, oh, I'm going to die from CF. I just kind of was like, okay, cool, but I've got stuff to do. So, I'm going to get on and do it and I enjoy my life and just see, because nobody really knows. Like, I know obviously that's a very good mindset to have, and I know not everybody has that mindset. But at the end of the day, like, you've just got to make the most of what you've got and just kind of like live and enjoy life, because, disease or not, like, yes, there's more chance with CF, but equally you could use your adversity for advantage and actually live a more amazing life. Like, a lot of my friends are like, you have done more in your 29 years than we have done, what we will probably ever do.
Yeah.
So
that's it. I think it is definitely being like, okay, what do you want and what can you do or change in order to achieve that or work towards that? And like we can't control the end result or the end point at times, but
no.
I think the things that we do now, little changes that we do now, are all getting us to where we want to go.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I just hope that, like, people can like be courageous enough to be like, this is what I want to do, and I'm going to be bold enough to go and chase it. Because I think we live in such a, like, well, maybe not actually at the moment because of COVID, but we can achieve more things than we believe if we just simply believe in ourselves and like commit and don't give up despite the hurdles. Because like, life is a roller coaster. Like, it's going to be up and down. It's never going to be a straightforward way to success. And even then, when you get there, you'll probably then be like, actually, I would now want to like achieve this, which is even bigger. Like, I'm a firm believer of setting goals so big that they scare you, but then set micro goals along the way to get you to that main goal. And actually, it's the journey itself, and getting comfortable with the uncomfortable of that is actually what is the making of you and like pushing you as a person.
Yeah, no, 100%. And so, like, because you said you sort of made a lot of changes to what you eat and how you eat after sort of re-educating yourself. So, like, what is your kind of, I guess, philosophy or approach to nutrition just in general these days?
So obviously we're human beings, and I don't believe in restriction as such. Like, I do believe, you need to have what you enjoy as well as getting everything you need. Because I think you do feel the difference if you fuel your body for everything it needs and then have the bits on the side that you enjoy. Like, for example, I'm partial to an ice cream or chocolate or like something like that.
Yeah.
Actually, that does only benefit you as well, especially mentally. Like, with my own clients, I always say to them, I'm not asking you to be perfect every day. I'm not asking you to like kind of always hit X, Y, and Z, but I want you to do your very best. Eat, obviously, as many colors of fruits and vegetables as you can, get your protein and carbs in, but don't punish yourself if you fancy something, because at the end of the day, like, what I found, especially not more so with myself because I'm not a binge kind of person, but if people do restrict, they're more likely to binge, which is not good for them. So like, I'm always just like, what, if you fancy some chocolate every day, you go for it, so long as you've had X, Y, and Z and you've moved a bit, that's fine.
Well, just be mindful about it and treating it as like they're extras and they're not the bulk, or, and just being aware, like, say, of like being aware of what the contribution is.
Yeah, and I think as well, like, it's learning, as I've said, like how your body responds to different foods and how you feel when you eat certain things, and also being aware of your relationship with food itself.
Yeah.
Because I've never had a problem with food. or my relationship with food, other than knowing what foods trigger my stomach. Because I think it must have been, God, when did I have my appendix out? It must have been like 6 years ago. I took my appendix out by accident.
How did it come out by accident?
Because basically I didn't know this and I'd never had it before, but I'd had DOS, which is obviously intestinal obstruction, but basically it presents as the same symptoms as appendicitis.
Okay.
And my local hospital isn't a specialised CF hospital. They thought I had appendicitis. In actual fact, I had DOS. So they took my appendix out, thinking it was the problem. And then my CF doctors were like, oh no, this is just this. You just need to take this tablet and it should be fine. Like, and then from that moment, I was like, okay, well, what has caused this problem? Is it dehydration? Is it too much sugar? Is it X, Y, and Z? So, you know, I always try and encourage people to kind of take note how they feel about, or like how they feel after they've eaten certain foods.
Yeah.
Just because it is helpful to kind of then, for you personally, to build a nutrition, not plan, but like throughout your week.
I agree, because I find the same. There's like guidelines and everything. They're a starting point, but how everyone responds to that is individual. And so measuring, tracking, recording, that's definitely where I find like having training peaks is helpful, just to make note of what you've eaten, any sort of symptoms or any, like, because you can see that if you're doing the same sessions from week in, week out, if you feel slightly differently between those sessions, you can see and feel the difference. And note of like, okay, what things, okay, I didn't sleep very well last night, or my sleep was great, but I didn't eat so well during or before. And you can then paint this picture of what is best for you.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's one of probably the biggest things that I have kind of been so happy that I took the time to learn, because obviously we can go to people like you for advice, and like obviously your wealth of knowledge, and you can definitely educate me, but equally at the same time, for you to be able to do that for me, I need to feed back to you. So so it's one of those things when people message and be like, but what do you eat? And I'm like, it doesn't matter what I personally eat. It's about how your body responds to different things, especially if you are going into endurance. And knowing what you can and can't have, like, and we all, and it's trial and error at the end of the day. We all make mistakes and realize that we can't have X, Y, and Z or whatever. But I think that the power of food, I think, is still underestimated, and how your body is responding. Because I don't know about you, but I enjoy feeling really good. So I will always do my best that I can do within reason. And even for example, like over Christmas, obviously, you know, it's Christmas. We all go a bit wild, as we should, because you should enjoy it. But then I suffered for about 3 days after with my stomach, because obviously I'd been so specific up until that moment, and then it's like, oh, it's Christmas, and then you go like a bit mental, and then my body's like, what are you doing? And then it's like, then you obviously get back into it. And I think sometimes it's healthy to kind of have those moments, because then you realize the why behind you, obviously making sure that you are getting everything you need as well.
And even knowing what's normal for you, like sort of talk like weight and stuff like that, where before, like people, especially women, like weight can shift a huge amount within a week, even a day, just depending on fluid, like hormones, what you've eaten, salt, whether you've trained, stress, all these things can make it go up and down, and then how that affects what you do and behave. So if you know how that shifts and changes, you can then be like reassured, like, okay, it's fine.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Because I try and obviously tell a lot of my female clients that it's like, you know what, like, don't panic too much. As you've said, it could be an array of things. We just need to know what range you're in, like what range does your weight fluctuate, because then you'll know that you're not going to be obviously have a mindset shift or like suddenly feel down or something. Because I know obviously a lot of people do rely on a number over anything else. And I just think it's really important to make people aware, especially being female, that female nutrition is very different to men.
Oh, definitely. Like there's a lot of similarities, but then there's just slight shifts of how things you just need to be more aware of, or just more conscious of. And I think that's with the fueling in the training is is a key thing, where with guys can underfuel and train without fuel, and it doesn't have a negative effect as much, where with women it does seem to have a lot more of a negative effect to do fasted and underfueled training compared to men. So it's still lots of research yet to be done. It's out there, but it's still early days. It takes so much longer.
Yeah, I know, and I think that's kind of the frustrating thing. But the good thing is now, obviously, there's more females getting out on the circuits, especially for the endurance circuits. I feel like there's a lot more, especially cycling.
Yeah.
Hopefully, then there will be papers out there for people to kind of refer back to, because it is really important. And especially just to take note, especially if you're on the contraceptive pill, obviously with the hormone fluctuations and changing up your nutrition for that and stuff like that. I just think, I think a lot of my female clients get frustrated.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like that it's okay, because you're like, depending on obviously what's going on, there is reasons for it. It's not because you're doing anything particularly wrong or like you're not making progress. It's just, we do need to listen to your body.
Yeah, no, 100%. And so like if you, I haven't asked you, do you like cooking? But what is your, if you've got to cook for dinner, or like you're a lazy woman's dinner, like what would your go-to meal be for something after training to eat?
I actually last night after training made a really nice risotto.
Okay.
Which was really good. And also it doesn't take long. I feel like the thing is with food and cooking, you need to kind of have a few staple recipes to go to.
Yeah.
Because we all have those times where we just cannot be bothered.
Yeah.
And I always have like things in the fridge that, like, obviously just throwing a load of stuff into risotto, or throwing a load of veg to be roasted, salmon, stuff like that. Just because it's like, we all get to a point where like, what is quick? What is going to refuel me? What's going to have, or for example, like if obviously something has to cook for say like an hour, I'll always have something after training. Like at the moment, my go-to is whey and Cocoa Pops, just because I love Cocoa Pops.
Yeah.
And it's quick sugars to get in. And obviously it works for me.
Yeah.
But
it's all about like what works for you, what you enjoy, and what's affordable, and what's tasty. Because I think I'm very much everyone should eat plenty of fruits and vegetables, but then what that looks like and whether you want to add meats or other animal products to that is then up to the person as an individual.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I think especially if you are going to be more veggie or vegan, it is even more important for you to do the research about making sure, especially you're getting enough protein.
Yeah.
Because I think it was last January, actually, I had a month off eating meat, just because, really, just to see how I felt, see the difference. And obviously, like, I asked a few people that were vegan, what are their go-to meals, etc. And then upon doing it, I definitely still didn't get enough protein. And I think, obviously, for me at the time, where my weight would drop dramatically fast, I think within like a week I dropped 3 kilos.
Really?
Because even though I was still eating enough calories, obviously it's just a change of diet, isn't it?
Yeah.
Obviously that probably wouldn't happen to me now, but at the same time, like, I think it's super important at some point in people's lives, if they are interested in nutrition and performance and wanting to kind of give their body the best, to work with someone like yourself, to actually gain the knowledge with that. It's like having a coach for training. Is you obviously get to see what they're eating, and then you obviously educate them into why they need to be eating X, Y, and Z, or the tweaks they need to make. And I think that is one of the most powerful things you can do, simply just to find out the things that you are doing like really well, or the things that you are lacking. Because I think for me, I obviously benefited from that when I worked with someone before, and I didn't even realize that I didn't eat enough iron, I didn't eat this, I didn't that, and naturally I thought I was eating well.
Yeah.
So it's amazing.
It's just like making little tiny adjustments.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. Like, it's the small things that you can add into your daily life that don't even feel like an effort, that make the difference to how you feel.
Oh, 100%. And then especially I find that making those small changes, if they're small, you're more likely to be able to stick with them and then change your way. Like obviously it's New Year's Eve today, and everyone, maybe lots of people will be making New Year's resolutions, but often they're making huge changes and huge multiple commitments, and then don't stick with them because the change is too drastic, where I've just found so much, like a couple of little things and maybe a slight change, or maybe a little bit less of this or a little bit more of that. It's easier because it doesn't seem like such a big deal.
Yeah, 100%. And like, this is the beauty of it. I think people think that they need to make drastic changes, but actually it's about the small regular tweaks over a longer period of time that then, as you've said, can be maintained. And I just think it's amazing how you can literally look at someone's, obviously you're definitely more educated than me, but you can look at somebody, what someone is eating, and you'll be like, oh, like if you just do X, Y, and Z,
Yeah.
then you'll feel like obviously your body will be more supported in whatever way. And I think people just think they have to make drastic changes, but actually, you know, if you just make the small changes that you can maintain throughout your obviously life, not only will you be educated, you will feel better, and actually you probably eventually won't even notice.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like change in a way that it becomes your lifestyle rather than it being like such an effort.
Yeah, and I think that's the amazing thing, and that's what I've definitely found with CF over the years. It's about finding out what, because I know exactly my triggers.
Yeah.
For example, I get heartburn from gin. So
from gin.
Yeah, random example. But I don't drink really because I get breathless and hot and digestive issues. But obviously I probably will tonight because it's New Year's Eve.
Actually, that was probably like my wrap up questions usually about like, would you rather? And it's like wine or beer. I'm like, maybe I should add gin in there.
Yeah, it's like, yeah. And I also like, because I didn't realize that's what it was. But then obviously I'd have like the gin and be like, oh. And then obviously when I spoke to the doctor, they're like, oh, it's probably just your body's just not wanting it. Like, okay. So.
What do you like? You learn to, okay, I'm going to enjoy it a small amount, odd occasion, just limit it, because if I have more than one, then I'm not happy for the next few days.
Well, yeah, and like a lot of my friends were like, oh, like, don't be so boring. I'm like, I'm not. I just don't actually want to be breathless for no reason. In terms of like, I'm breathless because I've had alcohol, not because of any other reason. I'm like, I can control that. And I don't really want to feel breathless, especially with the volume of training. It's just not worth it for me, but I can get away with having one. But then after that, it's just, my body is just not happy.
Yeah.
And I think obviously for me, like where I've shared that online as well, I think more people are now being more comfortable to say no to drinking if they don't want, because it's obviously around, I don't know about you, but like a lot of people do rely on drinking to be social and have a good time. But for me, it's like I can still have a perfectly good time on one drink or no drinks.
It's just linking your current action to the future response or outcome to that, and being like, okay, this is my limit and this is the reason for it. Don't necessarily have to justify it, but to people, but sometimes people want a justification, but linking your why as to why that's changing. So that's really cool. So sort of wrapping up, are you a coffee drinker or a tea drinker?
Coffee. I love my coffee.
Yeah.
I only have 2 a day. Like I do love coffee, but I only would have 2.
Yeah.
Just because I think I would just go a bit wild otherwise. I've got enough energy. I don't need. I normally have it around training as well, just because it helps.
Yeah, I find I've been drinking, I love coffee. I've been drinking a bit more decaf because it was creeping up to about 4 a day. And I'm like, okay, I need to get on top of this.
It's too easy.
Yeah, they just taste too good. And like you, I don't need it for the energy. I just drink it because I like the taste of it. Are you a chocolate or a chip fan?
A chocolate or
chips, crisps?
Oh, I thought you said a jip fan. I was like, what's a jip? This is a hard one because I do have a limit on sweet food.
Yeah.
If you're going to give me salt and vinegar, then I'll take the chips.
Yeah. Fair enough. What about like during training or racing, gels or solids?
Probably solids. I still have a bit of fear about gels, I'll admit.
Is that because you've just had the bad experiences, or?
I've had one bad experience a very long time ago.
Yeah.
And never really tried them since.
Yeah.
They're probably different now because that was probably like 10 years ago. And I think I had one.
It all comes down to the brand and the ingredients, because some people will swear on a brand and you take it and you're like, oh, no, not happy.
Yeah. I think I had a cyst one more like in the summer when I was I think I was like 20 miles from home and my friend was like, just have it, because I was getting cramp in my legs because of the lack of salt and stuff. And that was fine. So maybe I should really try it. But I definitely at the moment would go for solids.
Yeah. What about still or sparkling water?
With a bit of elderflower is always nice.
Oh, yeah. A little bit sweet.
Yeah.
What about like just mild food or spicy food? What's your preference there?
I'm more of a mild
Yeah.
person personally, only because my tolerance actually, weirdly enough, in the last few months to spicy food isn't as good as it used to be, which
Okay.
is really random, but
Have you, like, your taste buds changed with the new meds or anything?
it might maybe that actually. I've never really thought about that, but maybe could have happened.
Maybe. That's the thing, like there's all these like little random perhaps side effects or like just
Yeah.
influences, and yeah, because it's obviously changing something within your body. So that's the whole point of meds, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so actually that could be the case. I didn't even think of that. So thank you very much.
Pasta or rice?
Oh, I'm gonna go pasta.
Yeah. What about fruit or vegetables?
Probably veg for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm more of a veg person. I have to remind myself to eat fruit. I like it, but it just, if I don't, yeah, I just forget.
Yeah, I'm like that. I'm more likely to go for the veg, I think.
Yeah. What about burgers or pizzas?
Burgers for me. I do love a pizza though.
Yeah.
But I feel like I love burgers more because you can get more variety of burgers. I feel like veggie or like, whereas a pizza is obviously lovely, but I'd always go for burgers definitely. And also I quite like making burgers.
Yeah. Homemade burgers are good. Yeah. Awesome. All right. Do you have any last words of wisdom before we wrap up?
Last words of wisdom. Oh, quite like this. Basically, if there's anyone listening to this, I literally believe anyone can achieve anything they want. Everyone can achieve something extraordinary. So just go for it. Honestly, just go for it. And whatever people say, even if people are being negative or like trying to stop you, just ignore it, because you definitely can achieve more than you can ever imagine if you simply don't give up.
Awesome. Great. Well, thanks for chatting. I'll speak to you soon.
Yeah, thank you.